She has her mic off. I know she's there.
Hello, sorry. I was having some issues with my internet today.
Oh, okay. But this was going to be a short class. As you notice, the chapter is very short.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. That's how I was on, which day was it? Friday. I worked from home. Man, his internet just kept dropping. Every minute was dropping. To a
Yeah, I
point where I
think
had
the
to do it.
island has been having some issues.
Yeah, it was even to the point where I went and took a bath and I put on my clothes. And then the internet came back on just when I was grabbing my car keys. Oh, yeah. So I know what you're talking about. So let's wait on a few others because this is a short chapter. They may have decided to skip this one. Let's just see. It's what, 6:07? Okay.
So, Miss Arthur, sorry,
ahead.
question for you. I received a manual called like Company Law Practice and Administration Stage 2. Is there a textbook as well, or are we to be tested off of just what was provided in the course manual?
Just what's provided in the course manual and what we discussed. That's it.
Okay.
You want a textbook? I could send you to buy one.
Not if it's not necessary.
No,
if
it's not
all-
necessary. No,
Okay.
it's not.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything.
No, you're not missing anything. No.
Okay.
If it was, then I would have referred you to the book.
Okay, thanks.
Because in writing the notes for this, it's taken from like 4 or 5 different company law textbook and case study books.
Okay,
We try not to make it too complicated.
that's fine with me.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I
Thanks.
So
found the
those
manual
ends.
very helpful, but this Miss Archer, I ain't gonna lie, this capstone, I was reading through that. I know.
Hold on. I was sitting here, right? Listen, I'm sitting here, right? I crossed my feet and I'm tapping my fingers. I'm wondering who's gonna be the first person to mention
Me.
capstone.
Me. I saw these, I started to read through the questions. I was like, hold on now, hold on.
Ah,
I sent my coworker a message because she took this course before. I sent her a message. I said, I saw we got the capstone today. I think I'm gonna die.
no, the capstone is to make you think.
Oh, it looks like it.
It's
Even
to make you
question
think.
1, I barely got past question 1 before I was like, oh goodness.
It's to make you think and it's to challenge your brain.
How long should the answers be?
Oh, there's no length. No length.
Okay.
But like the questions are very detailed, so I think it will require length.
Mhm.
Like an essay
Yes.
each.
You have until May 3rd.
Oh, I'm glad you said that because I read it as May 31st.
No, May 3rd. That's the day of the final exam.
Oh, wow.
Oh goodness.
What happened again?
This just looks
Hi,
like a lot.
Darcy. What is it? Which part is a lot?
I want to hear Darcy's thoughts.
Well, let's wait for his
Capstone.
thoughts. But what I haven't heard, is he's asleep or is he awake? Let me just check the date for the final exam. I think that's what's on the schedule. Yes, May 3rd. Yes, May 3rd. Darcy. Darcy. His mic is off. You think he's at work? Well, he's still at work.
Possibly. I
Yeah.
do have another question too, actually.
Go
Now,
ahead.
when it comes to the capstone, can we send you drafts for your thoughts and comments?
No, that's like an exam question. What kind of thoughts and
No.
comments?
What?
No. Thoughts and comments? No. You could do this. This is easy.
I thought, yes, like if this should be interesting.
If you have a direct question, you can send me an email.
Okay.
Like if you've read it, you started it and you appear lost, then you could send me an email and then we could have a chat.
Okay, and what is the date for the midterm? Because I don't see it on the schedule.
There's no midterm.
Oh, because in the manual it said there's a midterm.
Yeah, but we didn't do one because how we have the Zoom classes. If you
Oh,
were in
okay.
class, you would have had a midterm.
Understood. Okay.
Yeah. But if
So-
you want one, I could give you one.
No.
How does that affect the course assessment weighting?
Hold on. Where is it? What did he put here? Final exam, capstone. I have to see how he's doing this one because there's normally a class participation
Yeah.
and then there's always another project to do instead of the midterm.
So that will account for the 20% that the midterm would have?
Yeah.
Okay. So
So I'll
another
probably give you
capstone
like
project, similar
No, it
type?
won't be a capstone project. I may give you a research paper to do. Nothing difficult. Probably just one
Okay.
question.
Okay, because when I saw the midterm and then I saw that in the manual and then I looked at the schedule, I was like, I wanted to make sure what date it was.
Yeah. And most of the classes, we didn't do the midterm because we're doing Zoom classes, but we gave another paper
Okay.
in lieu thereof. But I wanted to get the capstone out because I know the capstone has more.
Okay.
So I will then send you all your one paper. I'll put midterm on top so make it easier so it'll be clearer.
Thank you.
Yeah, be a
Thank
research
you.
question. All right. But the question sounds okay, right? They're fair. To the point.
Yes, thank you. Good evening.
Well, okay.
Sorry about that.
We've been,
I know.
what? Are you at
I
work?
was in. No, I was in transit, so I want to believe
Oh,
beside me, so I didn't want. I don't get book, you see.
One
You're playing a
minute at
little
a
slick
time.
stuff there.
Ah,
Playing a little
Thank you.
slick stuff.
no, but I heard you.
Mm.
But I haven't had a chance to read the capstone yet. I just saw it in my inbox. Just leaving work, but I'll take a
Oh,
look
we
at it.
figured that.
But
we
my
figured
apologies. My
That's
apologies.
okay. The capstone is very easy. Trust me, Darcy. You probably do it in 2 weekends.
Who the say two? Who the was talking? She didn't make it sound like it easy. That was Sassy.
That's Tessa. Don't mind Tessa.
Cause
Tessa just try to frighten you up, but trust me, she probably already
Cause of
started
that
her
bad?
research.
that bad cause?
Darcy,
It's
when you
not
read that,
that
I want to
bad.
hear your thoughts.
Okay.
Just the
You can
first
pull it up
question,
on the
I was a
computer.
little like, ooh. The other ones look
So, okay.
knowledgeable.
Okay, so I going back on mute. So I know me.
Okay, when you get home, you can look at it. Hi,
I'll be listening in
Danielle.
though.
Okay. Hi, Danielle. I know Danielle is there. I can see her. But I can't hear her.
Hear me?
I can hear you now.
Yeah, I'm driving in my car, so I'm just gonna
Oh,
be
you
listening.
too? Okay, see, that's what I told everybody. This is a short chapter. Thank God you all are in the car and listening. Because I don't want y'all to get into trouble. All right. So you got the capstone. Now I'm gonna send you all just one question, which will take the place of the midterm.
And when will that one
That-
be due?
Same time, May 3rd.
So both questions,
Yes.
papers.
Mm-hmm. So it give you sufficient time.
Okay.
Okay. I'll send you that one this week. I just have to figure out what I want to test you on.
Okay.
Okay. So let's start the 6:15. So last week we would have covered segregated accounts. Is there any questions? Remember, I told you all in class that these are normally used by brokers. Most people in the securities, whether the firms are licensed in the Bahamas or Bermuda or Panama, they always have segregated accounts in order to make sure that they separate the risk from each one of the client's funds. I just wanted to add on that topic that fintech companies are now being requested to have segregated accounts also. So as we move now from this brick and mortar banking and we move and brokerage and more into the fintech world, you'll find out that they're also using the same products and services to segregate the assets.
Yeah, that's true, because I work with a PSP. And that was a major deal with central bank.
Yeah. So they also have to have segregated accounts. Darcy, you know the advantages, why they must have it in the fintech world?
Well, I mean, and thinking about how the workflow is, you know, especially on the finance side, you know, one, the clear understanding of who's, you know, the accounting of it. Protect against the assets and liabilities of the clients as compared to the company. I know for the firm, they use it to track liquidity.
Yes.
For payout purposes, should that become necessary at any given point in time. They use it as a measure for, I wouldn't say not necessarily the capital adequacy indicators, but they use that as well, and as a distant indicator. I know a few more, but
yeah,
the police comment. The police comment, Miss Archer. The police comment. I go on mute again.
Close your mouth. And also the company, if it have any fraudulent intentions, remember how companies operate. If there are any persons who are employed with the company of fraudulent intentions, this is another way to deter them because they don't have access to those funds. And then of course, if they are charged back, because all the transactions go through the bank where the segregated account is opened. Because remember, in this fintech world, there's a lot of chargebacks. But there is one disadvantage, one of the main ones. And that is that the broker has to have a high minimum deposit. So you notice that people who do brokerage, they try to concentrate their assets in one bank or one or two or three banks, just so they can maintain these segregated accounts. So we know that a segregated account is a regulatory requirement. We know that they have to open those if you're dealing in securities business or fund business. And we know that the regulator can put stringent requirements on the companies if they do not adhere to this requirement. So let's go to our topic for the night, non-profit companies that everybody, including Danielle, is getting excited about. So a non-profit company is incorporated under sections 170 to 178 in the Companies Act. Did anyone read it? Tessa, did you read it?
I skimmed it.
Oh God, skim is not a good word.
I read through the manual more so. I went through that whole process, and then I did the what's it called at the back of the chapter.
Okay.
So the question.
All right. So sections 170 to 178 speaks to incorporation of a non-profit company. And we know that it can be for religious, charitable, educational, scientific, historical, fraternal, literary, sporting, artistic, or athletic. And it's non-profit. So in the
Very much.
Bahamas, what are the typical non-profit organizations?
Churches, associations, political groups. Hello? I'm muted.
Yeah, but hold on.
Oh.
I got stuck because I was watching a series this week. So I'm gonna ask a question. This guy played devil's advocate when he was in a religious class. Why are churches non-profit? Just a question. Why are they non-profit?
That's a good question.
It's a very good question. When I listen to people that go to various different churches, why is it non-profit?
I mean, where would their profits go per se? Like,
Their
Okay,
purpose,
so you
the purpose.
Go-
but that's what a nonprofit is. The profits go towards the objects of the company. So if it was a church, it would go towards whatever the church's activities are.
Yes, it's not not to create a profit, but to benefit its members and its societies and stuff like that. That's what I would say.
okay. But so that means that all of the tithes that comes in, whatever it should really be for the community where the church is.
Not
Yes,
necessarily,
and like,
but go
Or
ahead,
to
Tessa.
give out food.
like I think for the community is a good thought. I think that would be something like that should be done. Like if let's say the church was, you know, in Palmdale, it could benefit the Palmdale area and the residents of that area. But I don't find that's usually what it does. I find the at least you more so see like outreach programs and stuff.
But
But I
that's
don't think that
the
they,
point.
but I don't think that they have to, because if you think of other types of associations, for example, sporting associations, they don't
Mhm.
they don't benefit the community at large. They benefit a select group of people who engaged in that particular sport. And so you have other types of associations that only benefit a certain segment of people, and they're still allowed to exist as nonprofits. So I don't think that should be a hampering. I think the problem is that they say that they are nonprofit, but they're actually using these funds to enrich themselves. I don't think it's the problem that the churches should not be nonprofit. It's that we should make sure that they are actually nonprofit and conducting themselves as a nonprofit,
Right.
which I think is where it
Yeah.
falls down.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. I don't think you know, it's limited to benefiting the society and this, that, the other. But just as long as their aim is not to profit, but like I believe that was Danielle who was speaking just now. She
Mhm.
said it. I totally agree with that. Whereas, you know, how are we defining them? You know, are we enforcing or regulating them to say what they're doing is truly not for profit? So I guess that goes to the root of your question. Why are they even non-profits? I think that's
That's my question.
the
Okay, let me tell
objective.
you. Hold on. From a business perspective, right? Because we're talking about company law now. Companies are incorporated as a structure. One is to make a profit, and two is to protect the shareholder. Now, a nonprofit organization we know is is incorporated for a certain reason, which we just finished discussing, whether it's religious, charitable, or whatever it is. And we know that the articles will actually state these things. But by definition, from a business perspective, a nonprofit organization is a business that has been granted a tax exemption status, right, by the government, because it furthers a social cause and provides a public benefit. So again, the argument can still be made exactly what you were just saying just now, Darcy. Are they really, and what Danielle said, are they really
No, Danielle said that. I just was piggybacking.
okay? But I mean, are they really providing a public benefit and furthering a social cause and not themselves?
But I mean, and if they were defined as such initially, I believe it was quote unquote corruption since the initial definition, because that was their original purpose, to benefit society. But
I
like
mean,
Daniel was
corruption by
saying,
the individual.
by the whole yes, by the individual church or churches, select ones, because I don't think all.
No, not all. We're not saying all. We're not saying
I
all.
know, I know, that's what I'm saying. So as Daniel was saying, you know, something needs to be happening now to ensure that they are not profiting, to keep the level playing field, to ensure that all are fitting that definition of a non-profit.
Okay.
But I would ask too, what if we look at the ownership structure of a church? How does that feed in?
It's done by members. Who are the members? If you're a part of a, if we wanted right now to start, let's say all of us decided we're gonna meet together, we broke off from a Baptist church, right? How does that nonprofit organization membership? Is it all of us who are sitting there? Or is it that 3 of us from this newly formed church have to get 3 members from one of the existing church under that title or flagship? Because sometimes you hear people say, oh, these were former members of that church, but they broke off and they started their own church. So wouldn't the members be the founding members? The first members who started the church?
You would think so, but these examples in the Bahamas ain't look like. I give you an example. I grew up around Golden Gates. My God, what's going on with them? All of them fighting to say who's this and who's that.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying
And
now.
I know
You really don't know who formed these things at the beginning. And like you said at the very beginning, what was their intention?
But I think too, typically you'll find the definition of who is a member in organizing documents. So the articles or the bylaws or whatever will say what class of people are counted as members. And so you would just look to it, and if it is that the person fits the definition, then they are a member.
Now remember a lot of these nonprofit have bank accounts, and that is one of the issues that they had. They have no documentation. And so some of them, but
they should have a structure. So you should have the people that are appointed, and just as you do, resolutions and appointments, who is entitled to, the bank account should be in the name of whatever association it is, because they have to be incorporated as a nonprofit. It would be in the name of the nonprofit, in the same way you appoint your signatories to your bank accounts and have your protocol
but don't
for
forget
who can sign and who can't sign.
Right, but this is why the issue with the act came about.
Yes.
Because a lot of these nonprofits were not incorporated.
Exactly. Because I'm at a commercial bank now, and there's a lot of pressure on us to do so. All those pre-existing ones, it used to be, oh, I used to pastor, I said this, I said that. Yes, there might have been some looseness of the compliance function that was pre-existing across these banks, but you needed, like Danny said, you needed the bylaws and this that establish who's who. But now we need to see your NPO registrations. We need to see this, that, we need the know your ultimate quote unquote beneficial owners to understand what is this church or this nonprofit is going to be doing. But at the very least of it, they're still going to be rated high risk, no regardless.
Yeah, because its funding comes from donation. And just that word donation makes it high risk. That's what keeps it going, a donation. So by donation, just the creature itself, it is high risk. And then add to this, add all mixed up in all of this, there's also the issue that the international arena is looking at us, that we have nonprofit organizations that have not been regulated properly.
That's a big one. Because
That's a huge hole.
you close the doors for companies, you control that. You close the doors for the real estate, so forth, so on, gaming, and then the church door wide open. I mean, you
Yes.
can't tell this Mount X church that 100,000 members didn't give offering this Sunday, and you can't really go ask them, next Sunday how much members attend the church. To try to gauge where their funds coming from. Well, controls don't go that deep traditionally.
Okay, so let's finish the notes, and then we're gonna have a discussion on the new NPO legislation and the reason why it came about. So we know that when you want to incorporate a nonprofit organization, it has to go to the Attorney General's office. Why? Why does it go to the AG's office? Your draft of your memo and arts.
They have to make sure that it complies with the relevant objects that are deemed to satisfy the act and the purposes of what a nonprofit should be.
Okay, so in the Companies Act, does it speak to what exactly is a nonprofit?
Don't appear so, because they
No.
exempted nobody. Nobody's non-profit.
Because it says the memorandum just should state the restrictions on the undertaking that the company is to carry on. And then it says it has no authorized share capital, is to be carried on without pecuniary gain to its members, and that any profits or other accretions to the company are to be used in furthering its undertaking. So everything has to do with the undertaking of the nonprofit organization. If the undertaking of the company is of a social nature, the address and full name of the club or similar building maintained by the company, and that each first director becomes a member of the company upon its incorporation. And that's it. That's all it says, whatever is their undertaking. So a nonprofit should have no
Ms.
fewer than,
Acha,
go ahead.
what about unincorporated nonprofit organizations?
Like what, an association?
Yeah, like an association, or there I've seen where some churches, some nonprofit organization, they will have their MPO registration certificate, but they are not incorporated under a Companies Act.
So they're just an association then?
So that that's an association, but they bear the nonprofit license, the nonprofit registration. And in some cases, the license before the registration came about, they had the license as well.
Mm. But the thing about the act is that now everybody has to be regularized.
So does that mean now all nonprofit organizations, whether association, club, lodge, have to be incorporated, or can they still be unincorporated? However, they still will have their constitution and bylaws, of course. But do they have to be incorporated under an act? Well, in either IBC or the Companies Act.
No, it doesn't say that, because this act only speaks to the registration of nonprofit organizations. And then it talks about the record keeping requirements. It doesn't speak to that.
But Shalisa brings up a good point now, speaking about unincorporated and incorporated nonprofits. We now blurring the lines. One, we have to be clear on the regulation. But two, now we're blurring the lines of the separation between a nonprofit and a company.
Exactly. Because even the Clearing Banks Association public notice that went out, it says non-religious organizations. In terms of entities are characterized as NPOs, and it lists all of the ones we just said for religious reasons, scientific and all that. And they say these organizations may be incorporated or unincorporated. So you have those, and like he's saying, you're blurring the lines, because you have those who are incorporated, who are actually companies, who have to abide by the laws of the Companies Act, and you just have some that are just an association. And that they're two totally different animals. That's just like, say, you putting together a sole proprietorship and a company that is incorporated.
That's why Daniel's point was so strong, that what are they actually doing? And especially in the space of the nonprofit. What is your objective? It sure looks like you're making a profit to me.
That's how it looks from the outside.
But now when it comes to the registration, during the registration process, they have to provide some of the same documentation that they would provide to the registrar. So you have to give them your bylaws, you have to give them whatever documents you have that explain the structure of your organization, as well as you have to say who is the ultimate beneficial owner. So you have to now provide them, and you have to explain to them, you have to describe to them what you do and what your objectives are. So even for those nonprofits that are not incorporated, they're now collecting all that information from them through the registration process, which the unincorporated nonprofits still have to do.
The people at Attorney General office so tired of us financial institutions employees.
No,
I
because
just thought-
I could see the confusion.
That exemption list can get longer and longer watch.
Yes, because it's confusing. Because if I am an association, there's a group of us together, we form an association. We're not a company. Why would we're just being classed there because we are nonprofit? Like,
Yeah, and you have to
okay.
register. So people, when they did the whole, they did like a 3-day symposium on the new legislation and the registration requirements. You had people from like athletic associations, sports teams, all sorts of stuff, and they were all required to register.
Yeah, but I'm looking at the act. Let's see. I see it speaks to, it defines what a controller is. They put the risks that are associated with nonprofit. So they say a nonprofit organization, this is how they defined it. A nonprofit organization is a body of persons, incorporated or unincorporated, formed and established for the purpose of promoting public offices or objects that are religious, charitable, educational, scientific, environmental, historical, cultural, fraternal, literary, sporting, artistic, athletic, or promoting health, and whose gross annual income or any part thereof, if any, and other income are applied to the promotion of those objects. And there is a prohibition of any dividend or refund of contributions to its members. So the NPO Act refers to both incorporated and unincorporated.
And I mean, if you think about, if you
Go
think
ahead.
about it, these people are going out into the general public as well and soliciting money. So there has to be some accountability, or there has to be some requirement as to who these people are, because they're going out, you see the people having all of these raffles and the boxes and all of this stuff for contributions. So I can see why you also need the unincorporated associations to have some sort of regulation, because they're going out into the public and collecting money. You have to tell people where this money going.
Yeah, and any group of people can come together talking about a nonprofit.
All right. So let's go through the legislation first for for a incorporated entity, and then we're going to go to the act, which speaks about the registration and the functions of the registrar. Because they're supposed to be a registrar of nonprofit organizations. Who is that?
For AGA.
I don't know. It's like there should be an office of the registrar of nonprofit. Who's that at the registrar general's office? Who's that?
I haven't heard anything specific, and we've already submitted multiple registrations for NPOs last year, and it wasn't anything in particular.
Yeah, well, section 3 of the act says that there is a registrar, but let's go back to the act first. For a company that is incorporated. So we just read what the memorandum should say. It says that the directors of a nonprofit may make bylaws, may. This is a shall, may. To provide for the matter specified in the second schedule, so they don't have to. So Darcy don't go insist that they must have bylaws. A nonprofit shall have no fewer than 3 directors.
No, I say that.
No, I'm just saying. And its articles may provide for individuals becoming directors by virtue of their holding some office outside the company. Unless the articles otherwise provide, there should be no limit to the membership of a nonprofit company. So there's no limit. The articles of a nonprofit company may provide for more than one class of membership, in which case the designation of and the terms and conditions attaching to each class of shares shall be specified. So that one is mandatory. Subject to the articles of a nonprofit company, persons may be admitted to membership in the company by a resolution of directors. But the articles may provide that the resolution shall be ineffective until confirmed by the members in general meeting, and that members can be admitted by virtue of holding some office outside the company. So subject to subsection 2, each member of each class of members of a nonprofit shall have 1 vote. The articles of a nonprofit may provide that each member of a specified class shall have more than 1 vote or shall have no vote. Unless the articles of a nonprofit company otherwise provide, the interests of a member in such a company shall not be transferable and shall lapse and cease to exist upon his death, or when he shall cease to be a member by resignation or otherwise in accordance with the articles of the company. Where the articles of a nonprofit company provide that the interest of a member shall be transferable, any restriction on such interest shall be void. The articles of a nonprofit company may provide that upon dissolution, the remaining property of the company shall be distributed among the members or among the members of a class or class of members or to one designated organization or more or to any combination thereof. Where the articles of a nonprofit company do not provide for the distribution of its remaining property in accordance with subsection 1, the company shall by a resolution of directors, after payment of all debts and liabilities, distribute or dispose of the remaining property to any organization in the Bahamas, the undertaking of which is charitable or beneficial to the community at large. Where the articles do not contain a provision for the distribution of remaining property to the members, the articles may not be amended so to provide. So that's for incorporated and registration of other companies, NPOs. Now let's turn to this new suite of legislation. It says in section 3, there should be a registrar. The registrar should be someone who's fit and proper and appropriately qualified to hold this office. 5 years as an attorney or as an accountant or a trust officer. Should not have been convicted of any crime and not declared bankrupt. They have the responsibility to administer the NPO Act. And the registrar may in writing designate a suitably qualified person to perform the duties of the registrar under this act. So let's look at the functions of the registrar. They have to receive, consider, and process the application. They have to ensure that all nonprofit organizations have appropriate internal controls in place, including an appropriate system to identify conduct which may involve identified risk. What do you think B is talking about? The registrar has to ensure
That's money laundering risks
that's money laundering risk, which are
or
identified.
terror financing.
Yes. So the next one says they have to ensure that the financial statements relating to a nonprofit are preserved for a minimum of 5 years. They have to identify apparent cases of misconduct or mismanagement in the administration of the nonprofit organization. They have to receive representations from the public about persons who have engaged in or engaging in conduct that constitutes in or may constitute a breach of this act or an identified act.
Yes,
So go
please.
back and
Thank you, Lord.
what that section means.
I know, but I thank you for it.
Oh Lord. You don't know what that section means?
Read it again.
To receive
Please.
representation from the public about persons who have engaged in or are engaging in conduct that constitutes or may constitute a breach of this act or an identified risk.
So that's reports. That's reports of laundering.
Yes. Anybody in anyone from the public can report on an NPO that someone in their church or the church itself is engaged in money laundering, or that there's been fraud or there's been theft. The registrar can refer cases of misconduct or mismanagement to the Commissioner of Police. So the registrar now then has a duty now to report any misconduct or mismanagement to the police. The registrar has to enhance the accountability of nonprofit organizations to donors, beneficiaries, and the general public. They have to promote public trust and confidence in nonprofit organizations. So they haven't done that yet because I do not recall the list of NPOs being changed, not since they started registration. And the registrar has to encourage and promote the effective use of charitable resources. They have to educate and assist nonprofit organizations in relation to matters of good governance and management. And that includes they have to issue guidelines or recommendations on the best practice to be observed by nonprofit organizations. I haven't seen it yet. Fiduciaries and other persons concerned with the management or administration of nonprofit organizations. They have to issue model rules, and they have to provide information to nonprofit about their rights, duties, and obligations under the NPO Act. They need to stimulate and promote research into any matter relating to nonprofit organizations, including collecting and disseminating information or research about nonprofit organizations, advising on areas where further research or information about NPOs should be undertaken or collected, and entering into contracts or arrangements for research or information about NPOs. They have to make appropriate information available to assist persons in submitting registrations applications under the Act. They have to give information advice or make proposals to the minister on matters relating to any of the registrar functions or achieving the objectives. They have to consider, report, and make recommendation on any matter relating to nonprofit organizations, including matters referred by the minister or initiated by the registrar on his own accord. So who is this person who has this mighty job? Because I've not seen or heard any of this.
And
And
that
this
is one
registrar.
hefty job to do.
Yes, it is. Because when you listen to the first part is talking about just making sure that the NPOs register. That's what they're doing now. Then they have to make sure that they have financial statements. Then they have to make sure that they have rules and guidelines in place to detect money laundering. So they themselves now going to need a compliance officer. Tell me, how is that going to work for a nonprofit organization falling into these categories that they have listed above here?
I mean,
How?
it depends on which non-profit they are gonna seek to be, because I can't imagine a donor at a church, for example, or a donor in general, declaring to you their source of funds. Like,
So that's what I'm trying to say. How's that going to work? I could see if you say, okay, Mr. Peacock from Australia has decided that he's going to donate $5,000 to our I don't know, basketball association. But you're gonna have to know the source of funds. So how?
At what point would they even ask that? After the money's already into the bank? Because if they're doing financial statements, I'm thinking this probably at the end of the year when they actually go through their statement. So it would already be integrated in the banking system.
That's too late. Yeah, that's too late. That's too late. That's why I'm saying now these NPOs are going to need a compliance officer.
Yeah, this is only a compliance function.
But then how would that work in the sense of, let's say, like, for example, a lot of NPOs get donations when they have like functions. Like, let's say they have a ball or a gala and they have these very wealthy clientele come in and they're just writing checks. I mean, are you going to have it in a sense where now you have to just get a donation stated and then follow up with them later and then do KYC and then receive the money? Like, what is the procedure?
Well, see, this is why I'm saying, where is this registrar? Because the registrar is supposed to provide guidelines. Because I'm thinking now, if you're at a ball and people are giving donations, I'm thinking they're gonna probably have a card or a little booklet that's attached to the way you put your donation figure, or you writing your check. There's certain preliminary information you're gonna have to provide.
Right.
And most likely now, instead of taking checks, they're gonna have to do transfer.
Right, because then they'll have to track it.
Yeah, that's
in order to track it. Yeah, in order to track it, you have to be done electronically.
That's one way that's gonna work. Because if you're gonna rely on me to provide you source funds for my cash they're giving to you in hand,
that ain't happening.
It's already a donation, so it's already a choice that I made that I don't have to make. So unless my beliefs are that strong, I'll eat your lunch.
But yeah, really, who giving you $5,000 cash as a donation? I would be suspicious. I would be suspicious if somebody tried to give me. I would. If somebody tried to give me at a function $5,000 in cash, I would be suspicious. I can see if you talk about a check.
Yeah,
but $5,000, 10 grand in cash. Who even? No, I would be suspicious as to what's going on.
The smaller churches, yeah, but there's bigger churches.
They'll take
I've
that.
seen people do them.
They can take that so quick. They can take that quick.
They can take everything. They can
yes,
take
they
everything.
will take it. They will take it. They will take it. They will take it.
And then, like, for people, like some NPOs have regular like persons who donate. So you could have people who are constantly donating to your cause. And so, I mean, those persons you may have, you could say, okay, let's maintain KYC. But then, like, for those random people that you may get from, like you say, a function, I mean, you're gonna go and get KYC just for this one time. I just trying to figure out the functionality of it.
They're gonna have to provide guidelines. They have to give to do. Oh, that's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful question. Yes. For you all.
That sound like
Oh, that sounds like a doozy.
No, this sounds like to assist the registrar of NPOs to comply with Section 4 of the Act, subsection J. Ha! Yes, that's it. Got it.
You get it?
I got it. Right. So you all are going to assist the registrar on building out the education guidelines that they need.
Oh, boy.
Yes.
I like it. I like the question.
Yeah, I like the question too.
Okay. And y'all can do it. Y'all can do it in pairs if you wish.
Wonderful.
Lisa.
I don't want Darcy.
I give her my
Sorry, I missed
compliment.
that. I missed that whole thing. What's gonna be the question?
The question, let me write this question out while I'm talking to you all. The question will be, what did I say, Darcy? This is the question.
Assist the registrar with section something subsection J.
Assist the registrar
With,
of
with sec-
NPO Act
Mhm.
with the establishment
Of an education framework.
of section 4. Hold on,
Subsection J.
section 4, section J. By providing draft documents and or templates to assist the NPOs with compliance of the new act. Yes, got it. Yeah, because K will depend on after everyone is registered. K is talking about providing research on NPOs. So you can't do that until you know what types you have. And then you could give them that. But for J, yes, you're going to provide some educational. You issuing guidelines and recommendation on the best practice to be observed by non-profit organizations, fiduciaries, and other persons concerned with the management or administration of NPOs. So you're giving it in general, and you're looking at key players in an NPO. You're going to issue some model rules. And then you're going to provide information to NPOs about their rights, duties, and obligations under the Act. Wonderful. Got it. You see that? One research paper down.
One. How much we having?
Only one.
Okay,
He
I like
sounded
that one.
concerned.
Don't forget now, before he came on, we had already agreed there's only one. So he was late. So section 6 says that the registrar shall establish and maintain a register of nonprofit organizations. And in this register, he has to include the name, the registered office, telephone number, and email, its purposes and activities, the identity of the founder and the controller, the date of registration of an NPO under the Act, and any other information that they may deem appropriate. And he could keep the register should be prepared and kept in any manner as the registrar thinks fit. So it could be an actual book or it can be electronic. And so it says in section 4, subsection 4, the registrar can supply any person on payment of the requisite fee copies or extracts from any document in his possession, which is from time being open to public inspection in accordance with this act. Now you see why the churches were making so much noise. And the register should be open for inspection to the public during regular working hours. So under section 7, it says you have to be registered under the Act. And you have to submit an application in the form that's set out in the first schedule. So subject to subsection 4, the registrar will register you. And the application submitted The registrar shall have regard to the declared purposes of the nonprofit organization. Now, don't forget now, your purpose for establishing a nonprofit was already approved by the AG. So this is more or less for those who are unincorporated. Because the incorporated ones already have an approval from the AG's office. You agree? A mission statement, the controller and the members, a copy of the trust or the trust deed or any other organizational documents, the constitution or memorandum of association, anticipated source of contributions. That's a key one.
Source of funds.
Where you going to be gathering your donations from? Evidence of how gross annual income was or is to be applied. Evidence of your KYC compliance. Evidence of board structure and function. And any other thing that the registrar deems relevant. The controller or the last controller have to advise the registrar when the NPO ceases to exist, or if there's any change in its purpose, trust, membership, or any other particulars.
Did you say
Any
evidence
other-
of controls? That was one of the listed.
No, the
prior to that.
controller. No, the controller. Whoever's
Okay.
the controller of the NPO have to
Uh-huh.
notify the registrar if the NPO ceases to exist, or if there's any change in its purposes of trust and membership. So just listening to what I just finished saying in terms of you being registered, you can see that an NPO now has different players. They want evidence of your board and your board structure and function. You have to have a compliance officer because you have the evidence of your KYC compliance. You need an accountant. And of course, most churches have a secretary, but that secretary just can't be anybody who just shuffle paper, because you have a record keeping requirement.
They probably have people more enlightened in these rules, because I can't see them paying that compliance officer salary. Or can they? Maybe I
I
should
was
go to
thinking the
Brad.
Well-
same thing. I was thinking the same thing.
You were?
Chief compliance officer Montego. That sound good?
Yeah, I mean,
But guess
NPOs
what?
are
They could have
known for
church
low
members.
salaries.
But guess what? They could have church members who are professional compliance officers.
They do, because all of us
Yeah.
go to the church.
Right, so they probably have them act in that capacity.
But are they getting paid though?
Well, I don't know, I doubt it.
Oh, that's not cool.
Why? Get
That's a lot of
blessings,
work.
blessings.
That's a blessing.
It is a lot of work because guess what? That's what your assignment is. Now you're gonna sit down to figure out how to do this. And when you answer this midterm, I'm gonna put the selection to the bottom of what type of association you're going to do based on the act.
Stay
Whether
away
you're
from
doing
a church.
cultural, literal, church, you should decide which one it is and then you prepare the rules.
I don't think church can be a difficult one.
Why?
How are you gonna
And-
like I said, the whole premise is on a donation, and sometimes those donations traditionally was anonymous. I mean, I guess it's not difficult. That should be a fun one.
You have educational, you have sporting, you have cultural, fraternal, environmental, artistic. Oh, y'all have plenty to choose from.
Police Staff Association.
That don't say that there. Where that fall under?
That's
That's fraternal? That must be falls under fraternal.
it's association.
Yeah, well, I don't know which one that fall under. So if you decide that you don't want to get registered, and the registration time gone, wasn't there a deadline?
It was last year. There was a
September?
deadline for existing companies, for existing NPOs to register. I think it was
Yeah, deadline.
July.
There was a deadline
Or-
and they pushed
Okay,
it back.
the act came in effect in May. And you had to register by the 23rd of August. But they got an extension to September 2020. So all existing should be registered. They should be. So if they're not registered, then the registrar needs to start issuing some fines. You know what the fine is, right? $10,000. And then the act said, remember the act said they had to register within 90 days, but of course they got an extension. So
10
once
grand,
the
that is-
registrar, go ahead.
Die nothing, man. 10 grand. Palm Sunday, we got that covered.
Oh God. Oh Lord. Oh yeah, Palm Sunday coming up. More people going to church, more donations. I see where you all can make money.
But it's not for
Okay.
profit, man.
No, you're not, the church is not profiting. Now, of course, a registrar can refuse to register an NPO. One is if you don't fall within the definition of an NPO. Two would be if your objects are not for a nonprofit. It's for illegal purposes. Or your information on your registration application is incorrect. Or if there's a variation in the name of the NPO. So now they have a restriction. Remember when we said for have a company, you can't use the name of, use words like securities or brokerage and any similar words. So now on the NPO, they says that no NPO can be registered under a name that is identical with the name of an existing NPO. Or contains any of the usual words: bank, building society, cooperative exchange, imperial, insurance, municipal, and royal. They can't use those. They can't use a name that's indecent or offensive or is objectionable or likely to mislead the public as to its true nature of the NPO as set out in the trust. And then they have the same clause as what we have in the regular Companies Act, that if two NPOs have the same name or they resemble one another, the registrar may, whether or not the consent of the nonprofit in existence has been obtained pursuant to the subsection, give notice to the last registered person to change the name. And of course, the notice has to be published in the Gazette. And then this registrar has powers to cancel or suspend your registration. And they will publish it also in the newspaper. And the NPO can be removed from the register if they fail to conduct their affairs in accordance with its objects, or they fail to submit any return or notice, if they fail to maintain accounting records, if it's dissolved, if they refuse to comply with any requests by the registrar, or if their registration is revoked or canceled, or they just simply cease to do business. Now, the registrar itself could remove an NPO if they feel that that NPO himself is no longer a nonprofit organization. Either change his purpose, ceasing to function as an NPO, or failing to maintain a required financial statement. So that question I could put to you is, how can a registrar determine that when they're sitting in Shirley Street? They say if it appears to the registrar, how can they get that appearance?
I mean, they could do it in the way, I mean, are we answering it in the sense of a recommendation? Because they could run it kind of like how the SCB operates, maintaining oversight of its like FCSBs. You could do like inspections randomly, you know, and
I don't see
I
that
mean,
in here though. I know what you're saying, but I don't see where they speak here about. Yes, they do. Section 16.
Section 16.
Mhm.
Yeah, they
Mhm.
can do inspections. I could have sworn I remember that from the training that they had last year.
16, power to conduct on-site inspections. So to me, this sound like this whole thing should be a unit. Because this one person cannot inspect all of these MPOs. And the
That's a lot of
inspection is
data.
at the, but hold on, but the inspection is at the expense of the MPO.
Ooh, that's a lot.
This sound like a true knee-jerk reaction to the FATF. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. As we go, hold on, let's go. Let me go back to where I was.
We're
Because
at
that
section
ain't making
12.
that don't make no sense. Okay, so 3 is okay. Distribution of assets on removal from register. In respect of an unincorporated NPO, its constitution should specify how its assets will be distributed upon removal from the register. Where the constitution does not provide for distribution of assets, a nonprofit shall by resolution of the directors after payment of all debts and liabilities distribute or dispose of the remaining property. Okay, if upon removal, it's unclear how the assets of the nonprofit will be distributed, the assets will be distributed in respect of its cash. 13.3. If upon removal from the register, it is unclear how the assets of the nonprofit will be distributed, the assets shall be distributed in respect of its cash to the central bank and its property to the treasurer.
Wow.
Seizure.
So
Wow, they better act right.
they have to act right.
Go over there. We can need that money.
Yeah, but that means that if in your constitution you do not have a clause that speaks to distribution, you're gonna have to put one in. Otherwise, it will go to the central bank.
I wonder how long it'll take them to build all of this into their guidelines.
No, that's what you're going to do.
That's why I was trying to wait on them for a reference.
No, they're gonna do the exact same thing what you're going to do. What are you going to do?
I know.
Huh?
Yeah,
What
we
you going?
go.
How you going to do this? Go
So
online,
first
right?
thing Huh?
You going
Go
online,
online?
right? That's what they're
No,
going
I
to do.
mean, yeah. I mean, it's multiple ways you gotta look at to get the information you need.
Mhm.
But first step I look at is the true behavior of an NPO. Select which one I wanna model after, and
Mhm.
then perform. I mean, and just look at their processes, how they came about, and what is the do a mini risk analysis.
Because you have to take in the AML perspective. That's
Yes,
the way your
ma'am.
donation's coming from. So if you fail to maintain your financial statements, reflecting all the monies you've received or spent, or pay any registration fee, and you have a fine of $5,000 and $500 per day for the breach. That ain't much money.
Per day until when?
Yeah. Until the breach is
Till
has
it's
been
cured.
remedied. Okay, so 16 speaks about the on-site inspection. And where the registrar is unable to conduct one, it will designate a compliance officer or suitably qualified person to conduct the inspection. And that person will submit a report to the registrar. So the registrar may, by written order, require any person to provide the registrar with information that is in their possession of that person, which relates to any nonprofit organization. So this is similar, this language is similar to what they have in the Banks and Trust Companies Regulations Act, which means that anybody who does any work, whether you're an auditor, in any type of inspection or audit, and you have working documents in your possession, they have the power to request those documents. Where the registrar has reasonable grounds to believe has information that an NPO that is exempt from the requirement to maintain financial statements under section 19.4 is engaged in activities that are identified risk, which is money laundering or corruption or bribery. The registrar shall, by written order, require that NPO to submit any bank records. So let's stop right there. Who under the list of NPOs are exempt from the requirement to maintain financial statements? Okay, all those who went to listen to the people talk.
I know, I think it was churches that were exempt, religious.
There was-
It's
Mhm.
the schools, it's the church schools.
This is where we stopped at last class. Same point
Yeah.
right there,
It's the church schools.
not the church.
Well,
Yeah.
Hold on.
Political
Church,
organizations who have a symbol or had a symbol in the last elections, something like that.
Hold on. Let me see where is that in the act?
Would you say exemptions?
Yeah, they exempted. But for records, for financial statements.
Oh, exempted specifically for that. Okay.
When NPO is exempt from the requirement to maintain financial statements. Now, who are they? I see plenty things. I look at it now, see if they state who it is. Oh, this is all the fines. At the training, did they state who is exempt? Let me see if that's in the other one.
I go back and find my notes from that training.
I remember them talking, but the gentleman who was speaking, he was too muffled on my computer. I couldn't understand a word he was saying. Okay, let me go here.
Would it be found in 26A of the Act? The exceptions of section 18, 19, 20, and 21. 19 being the section that speaks about financial records obligation. It's with the exception of those, this act does not apply to non-profit organization that does not solicit funds from the general public or receive concessions from the government or any statutory body in the pursuit of its objects.
What section you said?
26A.
26A.
In the act or the
Yeah.
amendment?
This is the Nonprofit Organization Act 2019.
I on the laws of the Bahamas, it doesn't have that section.
Oh, I don't know, I just Googled it.
Oh, hold on, let me see.
Maybe it's in the amendment.
I'm looking at the amendment right now. Because I know it was the churches is the ones who argued when we had the bill. When the bill came out, they're the ones who said they're not producing any financials.
Is a non-denominational or standalone religious entity or congregation which certifies in writing that that it maintains its annual financial records and that that membership reviews and votes to approve or reject such records in its annual general meeting.
Okay. All right, so I see it's in the amendments. 26A, the non-application of part 5 of the act. Okay, just what you just finished saying. With the exception of sections 18, 19, 20, 21, and 25, part 5 of this act does not apply to an NPO that does not solicit funds from the general public or receive concessions from the government or any statutory body in pursuit of its objects. But don't churches receive concessions from the government when they purchase land?
I thought they did.
They sure do.
Okay, so who fallen in this category then?
That's the political donation thing.
From
I don't know. Because even the Junkanoo people, the Junkanoo Association just got some concessions when they got that land on Gladstone Road. Okay, look at C. Is a non-denominational or standalone religious entity or congregation which certifies in writing that it maintains its annual financial records and that its memberships review and votes to approve or reject such records in its annual general meeting.
That sound like grass to them.
Or is an internationally recognized or accredited charitable medical, what is this? What is this? Providential or relief organization. What is that? Is that with Red Cross?
That's how it sounds.
What is that?
Yeah, Red Cross and Salvation Army.
So they're not required. They did, with the exception of sections 18, 19, 20, and 20, 25. Part 5 of this act does not apply. Okay, so let me go back to that.
What that charity was over here, something purse? What they name? Samaritan's Purse?
Samaritan's Purse.
And they've been around a long time, eh? I heard about them before. Okay, let me see who else they say. Is a constituent unit.
Miss Atwood, what B mean?
B, that has its fiduciary management or other service provider, a person that is registered. Oh, if you have an association and it's actually being administered by a licensee under the Banks and Trust Companies Act, or being managed by an FCSP who's licensed.
But when
They are exempted.
But when they say managed, because if you have a registered office who's an FCSP or a bank and trust company, that doesn't mean they doing your financials or overseeing your operations or management like that.
Yeah, but that's what they're saying. The FCSP has to be managing it.
So,
Or otherwise they hold your funds in trust as a fiduciary. That's what a bank would do.
so for example, let's say the Kalina group or Family Guardian group own the church and they are active in the management of that church. So they would be exempt.
But is the Kalina group an FCSP?
Yes, ma'am.
They are?
FCSP, Financial and Corporate Service Provider.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, if they act in
That's
a
all
fiduciary manner, if they act in
That's
a
all
fiduciary manner, or they manage
That's
it,
Yeah, that's
then
CFA, Lance Bank, all of them.
yeah, so then they would be exempt from the financial part of it. Yep. And you see what they're saying here with group companies? an umbrella organization should register on behalf of its constituent units. So all of the churches here that have little umbrellas, they all have to come under one.
Church of God, that's a big umbrella.
Yep. So they call them umbrella organizations. Yep, an umbrella organization is a civic, social, fraternal, or religious nonprofit organization that governs and regulates its constituent units. For example, an archdiocese like the Anglican or the Catholic, a diocese, a national convention, and that's Church of God of Prophecy, a national assembly, a council or grand or district lodge, so they're included too, local society or club district or local organization. So all of them fall under umbrella organization. And then they changed the first schedule. All right. So there's a lot of work for this person who's the registrar. How do you do all of this? But no, without knowing intimately all of these nonprofit organizations.
They have to do it, like you said, by as a unit, by committee.
Yeah. And they're gonna have this to send out contract compliance officers and do them in groups, because you know what is going to happen next when the Bahamas has to do its update on its national risk assessment, and that leg of the national risk assessment that refers to NPOs, they're gonna have to be able to give a reply to the international body on what is the risk from these organizations. So they're going very slow now. They're going to be under a lot of pressure.
What I see happening is probably the Ministry of Finance, they can create some kind of unit to operate like a NIB is operating in terms of field.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. They're going to have to, because there's no other way this could get done in the time frame when it needs to be done. So everybody is registered now. So the first thing they have to find out is whether there are others that are not registered and still acting. And then they have to go and inspect every one of these. They may not have financial records at this time, so they need to identify who needs to have it in place. And then they need to see whether or not the way in which they're operating is in accordance with their purpose. Oh, this is a lot.
They could go by the process of elimination. Start to chop off the exemptions first. That's a lot of exemptions.
Yeah, that's a lot of exemptions. But the thing about it is this, after you chop off all of the exemptions that will not be providing financial statements, and then look at the other body, which will be only a handful, I believe the FATF is going to come back again and say we have not addressed NPOs. Because you're only dealing with a small handful.
Yeah, because with all those exemptions, the danger will always be those who didn't cleanly fit into those exemption categories will find a way to try fit in those.
Of course they will. Of course they will. So yes, you did the law, but who falls under who does this law apply to after you've made all of this exemption? Now it says in 23 that all of the financial records will be confidential. So yes, you can go to the registrar and you can see the public information, but you will not be able to see their financial records. So they changed the wording from statement to records. And an NPO every 2 years have to submit to the registrar donations that are $50,000 and more. And whether it's made in one lump sum or an aggregate, that's section 24. And it's 10 largest donations. And that sounds like the Banks and Trust Regulations Act. The banks have to give their 10 largest loans to assess the risk. And that is also confidential. And it tells you it may be disclosed to a lawful authority for analysis or investigation, which means that when they get your 10 largest donation, if there is a query, they will send it to the FIU or the police. And then section 25 says that a financial institution can, or non-one, shall not open or maintain a bank account or ledger any type unless that organization is registered. Hence, that's why you saw all the banks with their large ads, Clearing Banks Association, telling everybody to please get registered. So for those who are working in the bank, are they all registered? You have copies of their registration, the certificate?
That's confidential information.
Really? I didn't ask you for no name. Don't get slick. 26 says, where a nonprofit organization fails to renew its registration within 6 months of its expiration. So you see now there's no leeway.
No,
It
but
says
yeah,
6 months.
we've had an active campaign. Well, you know, our MD is the current CBA chairman, so we had an active campaign to regularize those entities.
So renewal is when, how often do they renew? It's not every year. Renewal is what, every 2 years?
Every 2 years.
Okay, so every 2 years. So on the
Yeah,
second
Lisa.
year, so it's next year. So next year, they have 6 months. And a financial institution shall freeze the accounts. You see that word? It says freeze until renewal of the registration of the nonprofit
Yeah,
organization.
they were very careful with that wording too, because freeze as compared to close or seizure, is some other legal ramifications there. Or could be.
Yes.
So they're
Yeah.
very careful about that language there.
Yeah, because you know when you freeze an account, that gives the government the authority to then take it. That's freezing. They didn't say block. They didn't say monitor. They say freeze. So most frozen accounts, there are no activity, and you waiting on instructions from whatever government authority whether to release it or not. And of course, they have the miscellaneous clause, which speaks to when you give false and misleading information. Of course, you can appeal. And then there's a limitation period, 3 years. Let me see, and then they revoke the NPO regulations. Okay. So there you go. Registration form for nonprofit organizations.
So you
And
say that
notice now, go ahead.
the NBA project, that's the final you say, right? That's
what?
this can be the final, the NBA project.
No, that's your midterm.
What? We still have in the final? All right.
Of course. Why would you not want a final? Don't you like my exams?
Yes, ma'am.
They're exciting, aren't they?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
How much you say to get an extra point?
How much what?
How much you say to get an extra point? I love the exam.
None. None. All right, so that's NPOs. I told you it was a short one. That gives me time to send out my nice questions so y'all can get started. Okay, so if all of these entities are exempted, who's included? This is very strange. I don't get it.
That's what I'm saying. Persons that let's say technically don't fit in the exemption categories. There's so
Like
many
who?
exemptions. Okay, so one of them, like I said, is it says something about political organizations who did not have a symbol as for the last or past general elections. So that's pretty much eliminated all the major ones. So you were talking about what? Some small little rinky-dink political organization that just came on the scene?
That's how it sounds like. This don't sound like it's going to capture what the FATF was looking for.
Wait, say that again. Which section is it's exempting? What about government and government? Which one is that, Darcy? That's
It
26
was an exemption,
AAA.
it was an exemption list that they provided that
Yes.
speaks to all those who are exempted from MPO registration. It's
Yeah,
spoke
I
of
get-
political organizations. God,
They
that's-
say
If you don't-
sections, with the exception of sections 18, 19, 20, 21, 25, part 5 of the act does not apply to NPOs that, and then they list it. So go back
was
to the act
actually a-
itself.
There was actually a document that actually listed them. They listed them lodge and religious school.
Yeah, I have it.
rental
It was a,
industry.
yeah, it was
Generally.
actually almost like a press release from the
Yeah.
AG's office, I want to say. I have it. I could, well, for sure, Tessa and, well, Shalisa know about it as well. I could email it to you.
Yeah, please
Okay.
circulate.
So you could see what they actually specifically outline and categorize these entities that were
And it's
supposed to
the
be.
list is not exhausted, so it's more can be added.
But
And if
my
I'm-
question is, why would they put political parties on an exemption list? Like that's
Yeah,
such
I
a-
don't get that.
that is a category that I would think that they would want to monitor to figure out where they're getting these donations from and how that could affect governance.
Yeah, but
Mm.
if you have one being the government that is the political party of the day, you're gonna expect them to enforce themselves.
Yes.
They're not gonna do that. That's why we're not gonna see a
I
clean
don't know.
Freedom of Information Act.
No,
We're not gonna
no,
see none of
no,
these
no,
things.
no.
They're
No,
not
but
gonna
that's
do
the
that.
purpose of all of this.
Huh?
No, that's the purpose of this.
I know that. You know that, but that's the way it's gonna boil down to. The FATF are gonna have to come swinging hard before they ban
But that doesn't make
campaign
any
finance
sense.
and all that.
I
Doesn't
feel
make
like that
any
would be
sense
one of the
though.
most important categories. Like, I don't know. I don't understand that.
With the exception of these sections, this act does not apply to nonprofit. I don't get it. And you said there's a document that lists all the persons who are exempted?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
So who's this act for?
This is just a
The
smoke and
FIU can
mirrors.
ask that same, the FIU, the FATF can ask that same question.
Oh, the FIU ain't asking no question, ma'am.
No, she said the FATF.
That's just that. He just like to pick out, he just like to pick on things, man.
That ain't making no sense.
Mazasha, let me tell you something. This young lady and her boss will be picking on me all day.
You sure?
Stay focused, Darcy, stay focused. We in company law too.
Oh, Lord. I don't understand it. I don't understand. Oh, we could be in problems. I could just hear it coming. So if we have all these exemptions, wouldn't that make us more vulnerable to money laundering?
But
I
that's
just
gonna be
thought the point was to.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Darcy.
No, you go ahead, guys.
I was just saying, like, the whole point of this was to properly regulate and like oversee. And if you have so many exemptions, what was the purposes of doing it at all?
Exactly.
And if you were
That's my
gonna do
whole
it, you
point.
should have done it right. It should have all been online. We could have had it where they register in a portal the same way that you do like the way they
Everybody
did the
else.
BOSS system, or they did other systems. Have it where you're registering online. You should not have had to submit anything via email and get some certificate back. It should have, if you were gonna do it, like do it right, so you don't have to go back and redo later. I just don't think they
Yeah.
fully thought it through logically.
But like they saying, okay, he was saying they were trying to make sure to take the FATF off their back, right? But the whole purpose of the legislation is for them to be able to say now, as a country, we have identified, we have singled this out, the NPOs, we've identified the risk, because they have to be able to tell the FATF at the end of the day, okay, the identified risk that's coming from NPO is either corruption, bribery, we have large donations coming from drugs or whatever. They're gonna have to be able to narrow this down. And then they have to be able to have documentation to support that. Where is it gonna come from? The little association that does tennis that get a little $100 and $300 and $400. I don't understand.
Especially if you were seeking to really crack down on like you said, corruption and like bribery, that would be literally the epitome of political parties. Like that's where you need to, like, if that would be one of the things that you want to crack down on, that would be the one that you would want to capture. And then you exempted them.
I don't understand. Well, we're gonna
I'd be
have to
curious to
see.
see that list, Darcy, when you send that around. I'd be
Yeah,
curious
I'm
to take
waiting
a
to
look
see
at
the
that.
list. When will he send it? Let's see it. Darcy, you have it?
No, that's the work. I can actually,
Oh, to
I have to
okay.
track it down.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhere on my desk. I'll track it down and I'll email it directly to yourself and Tessa. If I
Okay.
can.
Thank you.
Open the laptop, Darcy. You have the laptop, go get it.
What? Hi, driving.
You still driving?
No, ma'am.
Oh, I didn't know you cannot be driving.
That's Shelly. So see what I did?
Driving to go where?
No, I am with my daughters trying to keep them quiet. Hey.
But listen now. So we're doing all of this registration. We have these persons who are exempted. How does that tie into VAT?
I have no idea.
I just
Adding
Googled
one to
something.
concession.
It doesn't, you don't get an automatic concession. You then have to go to the VAT department and apply for a concession. Just because you're a nonprofit doesn't mean you're exempt from the payment of VAT. And you may be exempt from some of the payment of VAT for some activities, but not for others. There's actually a guidance that the VAT department has issued for nonprofits. I could put that, I don't know if I can put anything in the chat. Can you upload that?
They have a VAT document. They have a VAT document.
Okay. Yeah, they do.
Inland revenue. Yeah, they have one.
Yeah, no, I'm saying they
I don't know
do. And it outlines the payment of VAT for nonprofits and associations and charities. And there's a separate registration process for that.
Yeah, I just hit the Google. It's have this thing called VAT guidance for those entities.
Yes. So you
But
you
then
have the thing.
how
Go ahead.
sorry.
Go
My
ahead.
other question is, I guess for those who work in like banks and companies like that right now, because if you have companies that have registered last year, but they haven't gotten their certificate yet, because we have companies like that. We have NPOs that have registered, submitted all the documents to the registrar, but haven't gotten their certificate back. I mean, have banks been freezing people's assets because they haven't gotten it yet? Or is it sufficient to say that you've supplied it to the registrar and you're still waiting? Because it's now March almost of 2021.
Good question, Darcy.
Darcy,
What is he doing?
Hello?
Feeding the girls?
Yeah, these girls can't unbutton you. Yo, stop that.
What? Did you hear the question? Did Darcy?
My apologies. No, no, they can't unbutton. Sorry, my apologies. I didn't
Okay.
repeat it, please. Okay, baby, daddy, trying to listen. Okay,
I
I
was
see you.
asking if any banks or have been freezing assets for those NPOs who have not received their certificate of registration from the registrar yet, because we have companies who have submitted their have registered, submitted their applications, and they haven't gotten their certificates back.
Well, last year there was a strong campaign to do that. So there was a hard push by the AG and the Clearing Bank Association to say XYZ is going to happen upon such date. And then there was exemption, and then there was some other what it was, COVID lockdown situation. So the aggression and the campaign the strength of the campaign did soften. But as per the instructions, that's what's supposed to happen. I'll leave that like that.
But it hasn't happened yet.
I say all that.
Okay. I will assume because y'all are about to get into big trouble. But anyhow, when I say y'all, I don't mean I know what I mean y'all. I don't mean y'all as the bank. I mean y'all as the jurisdiction.
Hey, you want to cut your foot? Come on down.
Because these people are not playing. The international reign is not playing if you don't take them seriously. So be back on the blacklist.
Yeah, but in all seriousness, that's my instruction. So, you know, upon our reviews, that's exactly what we're going to do. But like I said, this thing just came to effect, and the ones that we've seen brought in, like I said, there's so many on the exemption list. The ones that do fit.
I gotta see this list, man.
Yeah. Yeah. As soon as I saw it in the morning, I'm sure my trusted colleague will remind me.
She will.
I'll send it. Colleague, get on my business, man.
She will.
Sorry, that's my
Yeah.
inquisitive 7-year-old. Stop that.
Okay. So I'm gonna write up this midterm question. You all have lots of thoughts. I'll leave it open to you to decide which NPO you wanna assist the registrar with. And then we'll go from there. How that sounds good?
Excellent.
Excellent. Yeah, you need to send that list because I've never heard such foolishness in my life.
yeah, man, all kind of persons on that list. Fraternities.
Yeah. Where did we get that from, Chalice? You remember?
I don't know. It was a communication I didn't keep in the managing director.
Yeah, I think it was a PBA. I'll get it. I'll find it.
I was trying to Google it, but nothing came up.
That's what I did. I tried to Google it, but nothing came up.
No, that came on the heels of when it was in the news and the AG story. So I'm trying to figure out if that was the actual press release. And so that's begging the question in my mind to see if that's even backed by anything. Well, now that you guys are saying this.
No, I don't remember saying that. And you know, normally the newspaper has everything. I don't remember saying that. No, you know, they report whatever they could report. I have not, no. I've never heard of this list. But it'll be good to see the list. Yeah, it'd be very interesting to see who's on this list. Okay. All right, so I'm going to write up this question for you all now. Have a safe night. We're done with NPOs. Y'all finish arguing it out. So let's see. What's our next chapter? Let me see who's been reading ahead. Who's been reading ahead? What's our next chapter?
I think it's trust.
Trust and foundations. Everybody knows about trust?
Somewhat.
I trust my
Yes?
wife.
Oh, Jesus. Is she at home or she's at work?
Oh, she's home. She's home.
Because I hear you say it. Listen here. I was just making sure she could hear you. Okay, so next class is about trust. So I just wanted to know if you're familiar with it so I can know how to lecture it. Whether you know about trust, how it operates, how it's created. Let me know now. So I know whether I should go slow or go fast.
Go slow, please.
Slow,
slow,
trust
please.
is a weak area for me. Weak area.
Okay, all right. So
Same
we'll
here.
we'll take our time with trust.
No, but even with people who are strong in it, it's best to go slow.
This anyhow, thank you, Darcy.
Oh, get over.
Okay, so trust and foundations next week.
And
All right.
foundation. Foundation
Yep,
complex.
mhm.
Man.
Why is it complex?
I just saying. Okay,
No,
Miss
they
Archer,
just
you
have
have a good night.
they just have different names. It's a name thing.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay. Oh, they need you. All right. So good night, everybody. Let me write this midterm assignment.
It's bedtime for them.
What? It's only 7:52. Come on.
8 o'clock, my baby is 3 and the other one is 7. No, latest
Yeah.
was there.
Yeah, but it's COVID.
I have to go back.
This is COVID. What you send the children to bed for?
She got school, mom.
Oh, please. School is at home.
No, she have school. She been going back to school for a while now.
Oh, I see. I see. All right, then. Be looking out for this. I'm gonna ask Miguel to send this tonight. So if you're deciding to do it in twos, then you can just identify who's who. So I know. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So have
All
a
right, good
wonderful
night.
week. Good night. These weeks go like days.
Yeah.
Yes.
It'll go very fast.
That's true. This time it's a no man.
I'm telling you, it's just because due to this COVID, everything just look at this flying fast. See you later. See you all very soon.
Take care, ladies. Y'all be safe.
Yes, you too.
Thank
Okay,
you. Have a
bye.
good week, everyone.
You
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay. All
Bye.
right. Bye.